Hello and welcome to this week's show of Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger, flying solo this week, and my guest is frequently returning guest, Dan Szymborski of ESPN. Dan, welcome.
Hey, Wayne, how's you doing today?
I'm doing great. So, my friends wanted a couple of my friends wanted me to have a little talk with you.
People like talking to me for some reason. I still haven't figured that out. Why?
Yeah, I mean, and you are totally beloved on Twitter by everybody.
I don't know if I'm.
No.
I've seen my tweets. I am slightly beloved at best, and it's a mix of love and loathe. The duality of man.
Yeah. Have you gotten any damn Szymborski tweets or, you know?
I actually haven't made anybody mad in the last week. A few weeks ago, I got all the Padres fans upset with me because I suggested that the team could not trade Will Myers for Trey Turner and Joe Ross today. That the Nats would laugh at them, and then I got the Will Myers truthers that all insisted that Will Myers was a better player than Trey Turner, a franchise player, a superstar that's the foundation of the future Padres. And of course, you know, me being me, I had to mock that idea as well as I could.
I would have mocked it as well. So
Will Myers is a
there
good
you
player,
go.
and he's in his prime, and he's a first baseman. But Turner he's already had one superstar season. He's young, and you get an extra picture in Joe Ross. It was ridiculous, and I'm still wondering how anybody could think differently. It's one of those things like you find someone who says, "What do you want, a $20 bill or broccoli?" They say, "Oh, well, I want the broccoli."
Now was this one of these sports fan proposed, you know, fantasy trades in their mind, or was this something that was actually being circulated?
Oh no, what I was joking, because what happened is the Nationals, they drafted another Trey Turner in the draft, spelled differently. And of course I said when they drafted Trey Turner, I just made a tweet and said, "Guys, you won. You don't have to rub it in." You know, acquiring all the Trey Turner.
Okay.
But,
I actually missed a lot of the draft stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, actually last week I was without internet and TV for a few days, so it kind of put me behind as far as, you know, draft coverage goes. So I'm playing catch up, and I was relying on tidbits from my older son. So
it's scary when you don't have internet. I think the last time I didn't have internet was when I was camping sometime in it was like March 2016. That I injured my back also, which wasn't that much fun. But after 3 days of camping, you just kind of hope there's some kind of natural disaster that closes the campsite, so you have to leave and go somewhere with internet.
Yeah, well, for me, like, unless there is a natural disaster, you're not going to get me camping.
Yeah,
so,
I have a friend who's really into camping, and she drags me once in a while. I really hate camping. My ancestors worked very hard to develop things like houses and air conditioners and internet and soft beds.
Yeah, and right away it's like your friend, you see, the only way there might be a small percentage, a very small percentage of someone being able to drag me camping, first of all, it would have to be she. So that we'd have to start there. And even then, it would, you know, it just might not happen. I mean, like, it's just the way it is. So now, let's talk. Let's go right to the heart of it. couple of my friends want, say that, want to know why Avisail Garcia has not dropped like a rock yet.
I don't even know. That's one of those mysteries. I can't figure it out because his batting average on balls in play is still inflated, but he hasn't come down to earth yet. Some of the other guys who had huge starts still have, but I'm still not convinced. It's not like he's become a bat control guy or anything. He has 12 walks total this season. I mean, if he's hitting 280 instead of 340, all of a sudden he's a 280, 320, 500 hitter with poor defense. And while that's better than he was, it's still not a great player. I'm still skeptical. He's 26. This could be his peak year, but it's a tricky evaluative thing now because it's much easier when he's hitting like this in April, but when he's doing it for half a season, it gets harder to dismiss. Even though he doesn't really look that much better, it isn't like he's changed his approach at the plate all that much. He's just simply having more success with that approach. So I guess the answer is I don't know.
Okay. Here's another thing. All right, let's just take 2 minutes because I have friends who some disdain a lot of the new analytics. So, in layman's terms, let's just give a quick primer for batted balls in play and give a quick primer for fielding independent pitching.
Okay, well, they tend to work together. So, essentially, one of Boris McCracken's research in the late 90s on Usenet was that he found that from year to year there was very little consistency in the batting average and balls in play of pitchers. That the stats that were more predictive year to year that they seemed to have more actual control of was the homers allowed, the walks, and the strikeouts, the ones that don't involve any defensive contribution. I mean, there's some edge cases where a defense can save a home run or two, but that's not the most common type of home run. And so we found that a pitcher had limited ability to do that. Some ability, but it was swamped by the random variation from year to year. And so the study over time is that, there's some pitchers who can exceed their batting average on balls in play, but it's limited in both the number of players who can do it and the magnitude that can do it. Like if a pitcher has a 370 batting average on balls in play, there's no chance that that's a real skill. For one, non-pitching batters that have been forced into being used have a 340 on basic batting average on balls in play historically. So there's no way that a pitcher with a 370 that's legitimate. And batting averages and balls in play tend to cluster very heavily between 280 and 310 or so, just as a quick guesstimate. Well, actually, it's an estimate, not a guesstimate. And so when you see a picture that has like a 220 batting average and balls in play, there's very little chance that level of play is predictive going forward, that he's going to continue to have a 220 batting average and balls in play. But if a pitcher that used to strike out 6 batters a game now strikes out 9 batters a game, that is predictive because changes in strikeout rate and walk rate, and to a lesser extent home run rate, are much more predictive than that. And so it's one of those things that if you look at flukes in history, a lot of the time batting averages of balls in play is the culprit with no change in the pitcher's quality. Like I think Carlos Santana, was it last year or 2015, he had an awful first half of the season. His batting average was like 180, and he had a super low batting average on balls in play. But as expected, once that normalized, he then played kind of like normal Carlos Santana. So usually BABIP, or batting average on balls in play, is usually a very good indicator of what's real and what isn't. So it's if someone isn't buying it, it's hard to convince them otherwise. But I mean, we have a lot of data on batting average on balls in play. Now, just how much it varies, like how quickly do we know that a pitcher with, say, a 280 batting average on balls in play, that's a real ability. There's some give there and some interpretation, but it's a significant thing, especially for pitchers. Hitters can tend to improve a little better than pitchers can in that number.
Okay, and when you do your zips, do you when you do it for a pitcher? Okay, do you take a look if a pitcher's a fly ball pitcher and he has a less than stellar outfield the projected regulars for the outfield are less than stellar defensive players. Do you take that into consideration when you do the zips?
Yeah, zips does take it into consideration. For future defense, it tends to do it very conservatively, simply because I'm not going to update everybody's projections every time a signing's made. Generally speaking, good defenses regress towards the mean, bad defenses regress towards the mean. And to establish the baseline, I do have the data on past defense. And the model for batting average of balls in play in zips uses past batting average balls in play, past defense, hit ball data, some of the newer stuff from StatCast that's coming out, or come out. So it takes a lot into consideration. It's still hard to predict batting averages and balls in play, but our idea is just to kind of shade it a few points in the right direction.
Okay, so now I'm just pulling up. I'm just looking at I'm looking at batting leaders. So I'm just gonna roll off some names and guys that you wouldn't have expected them to be up here. Ryan Zimmerman. Let's start with him.
Mm-hmm. Zimmerman, he's one of those players that it doesn't seem crazy that he's good again, because he was a really good player before all the injuries. He did have a 900 OPS season a while back, and it looked like we weren't going to get the old Zimmerman back, because he wasn't good in 2015. He was terrible in 2016. He was one of the worst players in the majors last year. He was the first baseman that couldn't hit. So no one really predicted this to happen, but a lot of it is real simply because it's things like home runs. He has 19 home runs in like 250 plate appearances, and that kind of thing is very hard to be a fluke. Now the batting average, there's an aspect of flukiness in there. But somebody can have both a better season and some good luck. It's better to be good and lucky than either one by itself. So while I expect his batting average to start sifting down to say 320, 330, where it was historically when he was good, that still leaves him as a really good power hitter. It still leaves him, like, if you take 40 points off his batting average and stuff right now, and he'd still be hitting like 300, 340, 620. You're still a really good player. So even if the home runs are real and the batting average is good, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to keep hitting like 350. That will fade quite a bit. But since he's healthy and he's actually got his bat back, I'm optimistic that he's going to keep it up to a degree, not MVP level, but a good player.
Okay. Next guy. Did you expect Daniel Murphy to repeat last season?
I didn't. But, of course, now that he has essentially repeated it so far, it's more likely that there's going to be less regression than you'd expect. But it's quite surprising. Now we have to figure out how to explain it, because it's a very unusual career path to go from like an average player hitting 30 and all of a sudden becoming a superstar in your early 30s. That's an extremely rare just path to take. His defense hasn't been great this year, but we have to accept now that this is Dan Murphy, and it's weird, but that's where we are.
Okay, Aaron Judge.
Oh, I love Judge. You're not going to be able to fish out any meanness like Judge from me. Well, the thing about Judge is, again, like some other players, he's not going to hit 330. But the thing is, he doesn't need to hit 330. And he's a 25-year-old. He's entering his prime right now. So it's not unexpected for a guy to take a big step forward. I mean, I said that people were too dismissive of his cup of coffee last year because, I mean, anyone can hit anything in 100 plate appearances. And while his numbers in Scranton Wilkes-Barre looked kind of underwhelming, some of that is the park. The International League is more of the pitchers' AAA league. It's a less offense-friendly park. I can't remember the name of the park. Damn it!
It's PNC Park.
Oh, is it? I don't know why I couldn't remember it. They need to.
I actually pulled up the game. I was watching the game on minor league baseball TV last night because, in this one Yankee Facebook group, everybody's clamoring for Tyler Austin. So I wanted to take a peek at him because, I did look and see that he strikes out 1 out of every 3 at bats. So I said, you know what? Let me take a closer look at this guy. So that's why I seem so well informed. It's just fluke.
Well, you see, you should never admit that. You should just say, "Oh, I know everything." But Judge hits the ball incredibly hard. You look at his StatCast data; he's not getting a bunch of bloopers that are just clearing the wall. He's crushing it, and it's hard to fake that kind of thing. I think that he's established himself as one of the baseball's premier power hitters. I don't think he's going to hit 330, but again, he doesn't need to. He's having such a good year. He'd be fine hitting 230. I mean, he'd still have, if he was hitting 230, he would still have a 950 OPS. I mean, not that I'm saying he's a 230 hitter, but the batting average will come down.
Right. Well, it's funny. I predict. My thing was, I said, you know what? If the Yankees let him go through his growing pains, I expected him to hit about 240. 40 home runs, at least 200 strikeouts. But I said, he'll walk around 70 times. But you know what? It'll all be worth it. And
he already has like 45 walks.
Yeah, and the thing is too, and he's also got 89 strikeouts. But and then I'm here in New York and I get the Yes Network and I'm a Yankee fan. It was almost like a magical transformation where his pitch recognition just changed overnight. It's like he was no longer expanding the zone. And I discussed this with a friend of mine, Joe Casale, who's a former player agent. And what he said to me is, he says, well, they did two things. He says they moved him off the plate a little bit, so they couldn't tie him up on inside pitches like they were. And he has the reach to hit to get the outside pitches. And they also lowered his leg kick a little bit. So, cause it was, I kid you not, watching him, it was like a magical transformation. I don't think he'll hit 330, but, I tell you what, the way he's going with the ball and not expanding the zone, I don't think 300 is out of the question. But he'll still hit 300 with 200 strikeouts. But as long as you accompany that with 90, 100 walks, not so bad.
He's actually much better than average at not swinging at pitches outside the strike zone, and that's a significant thing. He's waiting for the good pitches. Let's just say.
Exactly. That's what I said. He's no longer. His pitch recognition is it's like off the charts now. It's just it's like a 180-degree turnaround from what we saw last year, as well as what we saw partially in spring training. So, next guy on the list, he teased us with a strong first half last year. Marcell Ozuna.
Ozuna, he always did have the potential to break out to a degree. He's obviously hitting more home runs than he ever did before. I think he will come back to earth somewhat. He's still an undisciplined pitcher. He's still an undisciplined hitter. But again, power increases tend to be more real than sudden batting average increases. So as long as he's on pace to hit like 40 home runs. And so there's nothing to complain about there. I do think he'll come back to earth a little bit I mean, we're seeing peak Ozuna right now.
All right. I mean, because his strikeouts are down a little bit and his walks are up a little bit as well. So, next
Sure.
guy, Corey Dickerson.
Dickerson, I'm still kind of skeptical on. He's been all over the place in his career, just performance-wise. He's actually, I think he's actually had a lower walk rate than last year. But you look at Dickerson and you see some things he's improved at, but he also, I mean, he had a high batting average in balls in play early in his career. But he was also in Colorado, and that always complicates matters because it's always hard to tell how good a hitter or pitcher is based on Colorado. Sometimes guys come out of Colorado without even a problem. Sometimes they come out of Colorado and they're just awful. I think it's kind of like the Jeff Hammond's Dante Bichette effect. Sometimes they are better than you think. I'm skeptical of Dickerson as a 370 batting average with balls in play guy. I don't think he's as real as some of the other players, although the power, again, is probably real.
Okay. I'm going to go down a few notches. Matt Kemp.
Well, Kemp has hit like this before. It's the batting average is weird because it's like he's hitting his stats are distributed differently than they normally are. He has more batting average and less power than you would expect from him. But really, he's come back to earth quite a bit in the last month or so. I think he's actually now under a win in both Fangraphs and Baseball Reference WAR. I'd have to check Fangraphs WAR, but no, he's right.
He's definitely under a win. He's still under a win. Yeah, he's way on. He's like
he's right at one on Fangraphs. He's at 0.4 on Baseball Reference, and that difference it seems to be the defense because Ultimate Zone Rating hates him less than the Baseball Info Solutions does. Baseball Info Solutions essentially has him as like a negative 20 a year defensive player, while Ultimate Zone Rating has a negative 15 runs a year, and 5 runs is, half a win, so you can see the difference there.
Got it. So, here's a... Now, it's not like he's hit like this before, but are we seeing, what's your take on Eric Hosmer?
Hosmer is tricky because he has just been all over the map as a player. He's had years where you look at him and you think, oh, that's a star in the making, like 2015. And then he had a big first few months in 2016, and then he hit pretty much sub-replacement level the rest of the season. Hosmer is a very hard guy to predict, simply because of this weird tendency to just shut down for months at a time. I think that you can consider him kind of a league average-ish first baseman when you're thinking like big picture, but at any given point, I never really know how good Hosmer is at any particular point in time.
Do you think he's like? I mean, he's a good base runner. He, I know it's just perception, but he seems to be a pretty good clutch hitter. Do you look at Hosmer as one of these guys who's like, no matter how much you dig into the numbers, he's a guy that's probably a little better than his numbers on the field?
I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I know people like him, but he kind of got wrapped up in all the royal super clutch ethos that was happening when they had their good seasons. I honestly don't think he's better than his numbers in this case.
Okay. And I'm just going to go with. I'm going to go with one more hitter. I don't know which one to pick. So I tell you what. You can. I'll let you pick from one of these two: Mark Reynolds or Aaron Hicks.
Well, Hicks his plate discipline has been much better this year. I think Mark Reynolds, it's not so like he's having an amazing season. I mean, okay, that seems a little mean. He's having a really good season, but it's what a really good season looks like when you happen to be playing in Coors Field. I think last year was more underperformance than this year was overperformance, if that makes sense. He's probably about a 115 OPS plus hitter. He's like 125 or something right now. So I don't think it's a big fluke. It just happens that he's playing in an environment that's particularly good for his skill set, and the league offense has changed to an environment which is also very forgiving of his skill set. Because I mean, when home runs go up 20% in 2 years, the players that are the best at hitting the home runs will tend to benefit more than the average player.
Got it. Okay. Now we're going to go to pitching. Is that your cat I hear?
Yeah, that's a cat. I wish the cat would be quiet.
Oh, I thought the cat was disagreeing with you, but that's okay.
The cat is at the doorway to my office, and she's meowing about something. I don't know what it is because they got their early food like an hour ago, so she can't possibly be hungry. So this cat's kind of disagreeable, so I don't know what she wants.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to pitching. Robbie Ray.
Him, I think, is real. You look at him, and he was kind of he had some pretty bad luck last year. He had an ERA near 5, but he had a FIP, fielding independent pitching number, under 4. And FIP tends to be far more predictive of future ERA than actual ERA does. His batting average on balls in play last year was like 350. He's kind of the classic example of a hitter. I mean, not a hitter. I keep saying hitter when I mean pitcher, and pitcher I mean hitter. He's a classic example of a pitcher who had a batting average on balls in play that was hiding his real abilities. Now, I think he's down like 270 this year. That'll come up a little bit, but this is a lot closer to the real Robbie Ray than 2016 was. I think he's actually going to be a solid number 2 pitcher for a long time.
Okay, and Jason Vargas.
Vargas is a little confusing in a way, simply because he seems to have channeled Greg Maddux for a year, just out of nowhere. What tends to make it more real, not real in the sense he's actually going to be having an ERA of 2.5, but his strikeout rate is up considerably over his career numbers. Something like 20 to 25%, which is a significant improvement. His walk rate's down a little bit, and he's had some home run luck. I think he might be, at least in the short term, a good pitcher. I don't think he's a legitimate Cy Young type of pitcher. I don't think he's going to pitch like that the rest of the season. But he's actually been really good. His batting average on balls in play is under 300, I think. And it's not like crazily low or anything. So I think he's a good pitcher in the short term. I don't know how many years this is going to hold up, but no, he's had a good year, and I think a lot of it's legitimate.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go to teams.
Okay. Teams are fun.
The Yankees. Are they gonna are we this past week, are we seeing the real Yankees, or we're just kind of seeing, just like it's a street?
Well, they were never going to be a bad team. When you look at the Yankees, they've had some pretty big bright spots. When you look at the Aaron Judge or Aaron Hicks, or I guess we should just call him Aaron Castro, just so we can keep the Aaron theme going. They have been, I think, a little lucky with the pitching. I mean, not Tanaka, obviously, but Severino is a player I like, and I've talked about repeatedly in the past. But I think they've gotten a lot more out of Jordan Montgomery than they could probably expect going forward. They're second league in ERA, and I don't think that their pitching staff is that good. And I think that there's some depth concerns. Simply that once you get past the guys they actually have, the fall off looks pretty steep, and bad things do happen. So I did expect the pitching to come back to earth somewhat. The offense should be good because Gary Sanchez is a real player. Aaron Judge is a real player. and as long as they're getting contributions from pretty much everyone else, they're one of the better AL teams right now, and there's reason to think that they're better than, say, preseason projections tagged them at. So probably on average where their record is now, their win percentage is probably not where it should be for the team's quality. But I do think it'll be a good Yankee-Red Sox race. We've had a lot of classic ones of those, and this could be another one.
And do you think that Tampa Bay is going to be able to hang around like they have been?
I think they can hang around. I don't think that they're as dangerous as the Yankees or the Red Sox are. I think they're probably more a player for one of the wild card spots. But the thing is that the AL East is so close from top to bottom, 5-game spread, that really any of the 5 teams have a legitimate shot at the division. I just happen to think the Red Sox and Yankees have stronger rosters top to bottom right now.
And what about the Central Division? Because that's fairly close as well.
Well, yeah, except for Houston, everybody in the AL is kind of close to each other. You look at the worst team in the league. Well, we'll get to them when we talk ALS because I don't want to jump to the other division and cheat. I am surprised that Cleveland hasn't really turned it on yet. I still expect them to, especially if Danny Salazar is okay eventually. Josh Tomlin and Trevor Bauer should be better than they are. They're actually way underperforming their fielding independent pitching statistics. I do expect the team to take command of the division sometime in the next month or two.
And the West. So the Astros are clearly did you pick the Astros this year? I know. I did. I picked the Astros. I did too, and I picked them last year too. Last year, obviously, But
I picked them last year. I picked them this year. I won't lie and say I picked them to be on a 110 win pace, but I did pick them to win the division. The thing about it, I just did an article on the Astros where I did some projections for the rest of the season, and I experimented with some scenarios just to illustrate how big a deal having a 12-game lead at this point is. That if because right now, like most of the rotation is on the disabled list. McCullers, Keuchel, Morton, and McHugh, who hasn't pitched at all this season in the majors. I did one of my scenarios I did was if those pitchers never come back this season, and the Texas Rangers are able to trade Mike Napoli for Paul Goldschmidt. Now this is a preposterous scenario. Even in that scenario, the Astros are still heavily favored to win the division. If you swapped the Astros and the Padres and put the Padres in the ALS with a 12-game lead, they're still much more likely than not to win the division, even being the Padres. So Houston is in a commanding lead. Now, teams have lost some big leads before, but most teams with this lead tend to keep it. Okay.
So now we go to the National League. The East is not close, and I don't see any of the teams in the East, that are trailing the Nationals. I don't see any of them turning it around at all.
And you know what's funny? I actually mentioned Oakland, and I said I wasn't going to talk about Oakland when we talked about the AL Central because that was cheating. And then when we talked about the AL West, I didn't even mention them at all. I just forgot about them. What I did want to point out was that when I was talking about the league being so close, that the Oakland A's are the worst team in the AL right now, and they're still only like 5 games behind the second wild card. That's how close the league is right now. So now I'll stop and I'll move back over to the NL East. I agree with you. I don't see any team putting up a serious threat to the Nationals. The NL East has one really good team in the Nationals. They have one probably good team that's run extremely poorly in the Mets, and they have 3 mediocre to lousy teams. And I think it's possible. A lot of things are possible, but I don't expect a serious NL East race at any time this year.
Neither do I. Now, but let's go to this to the NL Central. Interesting. I mean, I still, I'm assuming you don't expect the Brewers to keep it up.
No, I love the Brewers and what they've done in the last year. They made that painful decision to do some rebuilding before it got to a dire situation, and not all teams do that. And I always appreciate that kind of foresight and kind of ballsiness to rebuild before your cupboard's completely empty. I don't think they'll keep this up though. You look at the Cubs; they still have a roster that you look at and you think that they could still go on like a 30-10 run at some point. Because really, everybody is playing below what their projections were. I mean, literally everybody is. Maybe not Hayward, because his projections have come down considerably. But when everybody underperforms, the odds are that some of them will at least rebound to a degree. Because, I mean, the rotation, they haven't had a single star after having, half the Cy Young field last year. I do think, I mean, obviously they're not going to win 100 games now, but I do think they'll mostly right the ship.
And what about the Cardinals?
The Cardinals, they have like some sort of record. I don't have the number in front of me for games lost that they've led in. They've simply just blown a lot of games. The bullpen isn't horrible, but they're just not pitching at the right moments. The offense, they're kind of weird that they've gotten a lot from their starting lineup, but their bench has been just horrific. It's hard where they are because they're below 500 in a not very good division. I think that when you spot 4 games for the Cubs over the Cardinals, it'll be hard for the Cardinals to really probably be a serious contender as we get later in the summer. And I think one of the features, which we'll talk about in the NL West of the NL this year, is that there's not really going to be a great wild card race. It's really division or bust. For the NL East and NL Central teams.
Yeah, no, it certainly looks that way. So I mean, like here we are, we're in the West. Do you think the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies? Do you think all 3 are going to sustain?
I don't think the Diamondbacks and Rockies will sustain this win pace, but I do think that they are improved as teams, and I think what they have built in, what they have already in the bank, is pretty significant. Look at the Diamondbacks. They're 46-27 right now. They're 89 more games. Let's say they go 44-45. 44 wins and 45 losses the rest of the year puts them at 90 wins for the year. And then you look at some of the other teams, like how are they going to win 90 games? You look at the Cardinals and say this is a team that can go 57-34. You say, oh no. And it's the same thing with the Rockies. They're right at 90 wins if they just win half their games the rest of the season. So that kind of cushion is extremely hard for some of these lesser teams to make up, simply because, except for the Cubs, when you look at some of these so-called lesser teams, you don't really see a team that's drastically underperforming. The team that's probably the most underperforming of their abilities are the San Francisco Giants. But they're not just around 500. They've dug such a deep hole that they literally have no hope of getting out this year, no matter how good they are. I mean, they have to, play 700 ball for 3 months just to get back to 500. I think that I think 4 of the NL's playoff teams are already essentially set. I think the Nationals, the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Rockies, a lot would have to happen, unluckily or disastrously, or some combination of those, to really make those teams vulnerable to losing their playoff spot. I think the real race is who will win the West, because, of course, winning the division is much better than winning a wild card these days, and whether the Cubs can finally pull away. Those, I think, are the 2 big questions in the NL right now.
Right. Okay, Dan, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we're pretty set. You can obviously always read my work at ESPN.com. We're working on our MLB SportsCenter Top 100, which will be coming out in a couple weeks now. And then we have the All-Star break, which is always sad because there's those days without baseball that are just depressing. Not
to mention the events that surround the All-Star game.
Yeah, the All-Star game itself has become probably one of the more boring of baseball special events. Because one, you have interleague play every day now, so it's not really special seeing some of these guys face off anymore. It's not like those dream scenarios that we don't see. And the other thing is the All-Star game isn't really managed like an actual game that they're trying to win. It's kind of like this weird, goofy exhibition where everybody gets to play. You see pictures.
It's like a Little League game. It's managed like a Little League game where everybody has to get a chance.
And it's hard to get excited about that. I hated when home field advantage was decided by the All-Star game. I thought that was one of the dumbest things ever. It makes no sense to make something that important subject to a random exhibition game in which all the teams are contributing. I mean, it's pretty stupid that the Cubs did not get they didn't get their theoretical game 7 at home. And the Cubs wouldn't get that because a couple Giants had a bad game. That's lunacy.
I think they ought to have a winner-take-all pot for the All-Star game.
That would be fun. Make it lucrative because you know what motivates people? Cash.
Exactly. And I agree. Money talks. So I'm with you.
It's the best way to buy goods and services.
Dan, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on again. I'm sorry you're not going to make the Sabre conference next week.
I know. I'm such a poor planner. Hopefully I will make the next one. And maybe it'll be down in Florida. I don't know. I haven't actually checked where next year's is. But it'll be down in Florida.
There's always spring training. There's always spring training.
Oh, spring training's
so,
fun.
Yeah,
I don't go for the whole month simply because no one's going to pay for me to go down there the whole month since I'm not one of the prospect writers. But spring training's always fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Well, folks, that is the end of our show. Dan, thank you for coming on, and we'll be back next week. And Dan, I guess the next time I get you on the show, I'll be in Florida. I'll still be in my underwear, but I'll be in Florida.
Yeah, one of many New York transplants.
There you go. Thanks, Dan. Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.